Britain's conversation, The Nigel Farage Show.
Mr. Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Donald, and good evening, everybody. Well, it was the big Theresa May visit to LBC today and her first ever phone-in with members of the public asking the Prime Minister questions. And Ian Dale was in the chair, and there was one particular question and one, I was going to say answer, but perhaps lack of answer, that very clearly stands out in my mind and has made me really quite angry. Let's hear what happened.
If there was a Brexit vote now, would you vote Brexit? Because you voted Remain in the referendum. Have you changed your mind?
Well, I don't answer hypothetical questions, but what I have...
It's a pretty easy answer. I would be able to answer that. I know I would vote in exactly the same way.
Well, I voted Remain. I voted Remain for good reasons at the time, but circumstances move on. I mean, I think the important thing now is that I think we should all be focused on delivering Brexit.
Absolutely.
And delivering the best deal. But you're asking me to say, how would I vote in a vote now against a different background, a different international background, a different economic background, potentially?
You can't tell me that you would vote leave now. I mean, Jeremy Hunt, when I interviewed him at the conference, he said he voted Remain in the referendum. He was the chief advocate of Remain. He said now he would vote for Brexit because he says George Osborne's economic predictions did not come true, and he said that he was fed up with the belligerent attitude of the European Commission. Now, if he says he could change his mind, I don't quite understand why you can't, seeing as you are Prime Minister leading us into Brexit.
Yes, and I'm Prime Minister ensuring that I'm going to deliver Brexit for the British people.
But you can't tell me that you would now vote leave in a referendum.
Because I think, Ian, when you come, I could sit here and I could say, oh, I'd still vote Remain or I'd vote Leave, just to give you an answer to that question. I'm being open and honest with you. What I did last time round was I looked at everything and came to a judgment, and I'd do exactly the same this time round. But we're not having another referendum. And that's absolutely crucial. We're not having another referendum. We are going to deliver on the vote of the British people, and we're going to deliver Brexit.
Okay.
29th of March 2019, we come out of the European Union.
So there we are, and staying behind after his show is Ian Dale. Ian, welcome to this show.
Always like a bit of Ovies.
Well, interesting. I mean, you've now had a few minutes just to sort of reflect on and I think it's lack of answer to your question. Do you? I mean, you were in the room with her, eye to eye. Does her lack of an answer tell you that she's still a Remainer?
I don't know the answer to that question after that, to be honest, because I had thought that she would answer yes to that question. I mean, whenever you ask a politician a question, you're fairly sure of what kind of answer you're going to get. And as I said, I asked Jeremy Hunt the same question last Tuesday at the Tory party conference. He gave me a very clear answer. He said he was fed up with the European Commission's belligerence. The economic crash that George Osborne had predicted didn't happen, and he said he would vote Brexit in a future referendum. Now, if he can do that, why can't the Prime Minister? And somebody on Twitter said later on, well, if you had then followed that up and said, how are you going to vote at the next election, Prime Minister, she would have had to say Conservative.
Yeah, well,
that's not a matter of doubt, is it?
No. I mean, but she just did not want to answer that question. She appeared to be unprepared for it. She sort of jammered and stammered.
But you can't be prepared for every single question. In a 40-minute interview phone-in, you can't be prepared for every question.
You say that, Ian, but just remember that back in the general election, Jeremy Paxman had a head-to-head with her, and he asked her a different question, but a similar question. He said, do you now, having been a Remainer, believe in Brexit? And she avoided answering that 3 or 4 times. So it's not as if she hadn't been prepped, in a sense, a few months ago for this kind of question. I mean, you've been a Conservative supporter for many, many years. How do you think your fellow Conservative members and activists feel when she can't answer that question?
This is where I have to say I haven't been a Tory member for 8 years.
I'm sorry, you were a Conservative.
Yeah, and I obviously still have a lot of friends who are active in the party.
Side of politics.
Yeah, I don't deny that I am on the right of British politics. Yeah. What I think that the John Redwoods, the Jacob Rees-Moggs of this world, are going to be, if they were listening, and no doubt they'll read about it in the papers tomorrow, they will be quite horrified by that particular answer. Now, I wasn't horrified by that answer. The one that I found difficult was the one on EU citizens' rights, because it is quite clear to me that if there is no deal, and I think we can probably both agree that is sort of coming up on the horizon, I'm not sure it'll happen, but it could happen, I can see no circumstances where a British Prime Minister would say to 3 million EU citizens, well, we haven't got a deal, so you're out. It's not going to happen.
So she's still using them effectively as a bargaining chip.
Yeah, and she would say, well, look, I have to, because I have to protect the rights of British citizens in Europe. But the answer that I think everyone ought to be concerned by, particularly those who do live, British citizens who do live in Europe, is that one. Because she said, well, we don't know what the EU's reaction would be, so how can we give any reaction to it? And again, I can't really conceive that the EU would then say to 1.2 or however many it is million British citizens, sorry, you've all got to go back to Britain. Just cannot see it. I don't know. I mean, you've got more experience.
No, I felt from the start this was the one big concession, the one big thing the British government should do is to say that everybody that had come here legally would be able to stay and have their rights. And I think by doing that, we could have actually gained a kind of moral higher ground in these Brexit negotiations before they began, and she still doesn't want to do that.
But you see, there you are, as the person in this country that everybody sees as the arch Brexiteer.
Yeah.
If you can do that, if you can have the generosity and spirit to do that, why can't the British government?
Isn't the truth that with her lack of answer to your question today, she's upset both Remainers and Brexiteers?
Well, it's easy to do that, let's face it. I mean, all the people on both sides, I won't say the extremes, but the ones who believe in both sides most are going to be upset by virtually anything.
I wonder who's happy about the result of that interview with you today. I suspect not very many people, apart from you, Ian Dale, because the whole world's going to be talking about that interview.
I am the world's worst person at judging whether I've done a good interview or not, because I usually come out of an interview not spotting. And when I did the interview with her in July in Downing Street, I thought, didn't get anything out of that. And then, of course, there were 4 really good news lines that came out of a 12, 14-minute interview. So I'm not going to say I've done a good interview there, because I'm the worst person to judge.
Ian,
you can if you like.
And I have to say, you asked a very good question. She failed to answer it. Thanks very much indeed. With me, LBC's political editor, Theo Usherwood. Theo, if you're a Brexiteer and you're sitting on the Tory backbenches, you've had a speech in Parliament yesterday in which, under questioning from Jacob Rees-Mogg, she said the European Court of Justice would continue to have a say over our lives even after the end of the Article 50 process. She also effectively confirmed that any new EU laws and rules that come in during that period, we'd be subject to. So you're kind of not feeling very happy after yesterday. And then you hear the Prime Minister on LBC quite incapable of answering this simple question about how she would now vote. What do you sense the political fallout from this may be?
It's going to be big, and I'm thinking back to when Theresa May went to Japan in the summer and she said she planned to go on and fight the 2022 general election as a Conservative Prime Minister. And after that, you had Peter Bone, arch Eurosceptic, on your programme, and you asked him whether you thought she'd gone far enough and whether she could really do that. And he said, well, if she delivers on Brexit, she'll be a national hero, and she will be able to. He saw no reason why she couldn't lead the Conservative Party into the next general election. That was where we stood. And then you had the Florence speech, where she said, in effect, Brexit would be delayed by 2 years. This idea, and of course it was a red line by Boris, that we wouldn't take ECJ rulings during that 2-year transition period, 2019 to 2021, and then saying that she would. And then she comes on, and having 5 months ago, at the top of the general election campaign, said, crush the saboteurs, crush whoever gets in the way of delivering Brexit. That's what we need to do the Conservatives need to do by delivering a strong majority, 100 majority. Then to come on and say, well, unable to say that she actually believes in Brexit, what she is trying to sell the British people, then you'd have to question whether she is the person to be that national hero, as Peter Bone said.
Do we start to get a whispering campaign amongst Tory Eurosceptics?
Let's wait and see. They're not going to be happy. Let's put it that way. And the danger was, you talked about Remainers, that I've seen a lot of Remainers on Twitter over the moon. They said, how honest, how refreshing from the Prime Minister. They're very happy about it. But there was a danger, and this was something that a few of us said when Theresa May called the election, why she did it, was that she wanted to avoid an unholy alliance between Remainers and Brexiteers, that somehow you'd have the Remainers, who are never going to be happy, would come together with Brexiteers who just didn't think the Prime Minister was going to deliver what they wanted, a real Brexit, a proper Brexit. And that now looks increasingly likely unless you go with the no deal option. And it sounds from what she said today to Ian Dale is that she doesn't believe in that option because with the way things stand right now, asked if she'd vote for Brexit, asked if she'd vote to leave the European Union 3 times, she was unable to say.
I have a feeling we'll be talking about this again tomorrow. Theo Usherwood, thank you very much indeed. And before I tell you what I think, let's get our first reaction from a member of the public. Mehdi is calling from Tower Hamlets. Good evening, Mehdi.
Good evening, Nigel.
So what did you make of the fact she did not want to answer that question?
And she's absolutely right not to answer that question the way you and Ian Dale want her to answer the question. Look, I've never voted for Conservative. I will never vote for Theresa May. And I think she's not a very good Prime Minister, which Nigel, concentrating on the wrong topic, as Ian Dale told you just a minute ago, that he picked up the wrong thing. What, you want her to become a Brexiteer just because you want her to?
Well, Mehdi, what she's done is she's stood up and given speeches. Brexit means Brexit. Vote for me. And actually, when you put her under scrutiny, she doesn't seem to believe in it.
Nigel, listen. Has she ever said that she is not going to deliver on Brexit? She didn't. What she's saying is her own opinion, whether she's a Remainer or Brexiteer. That's got nothing, absolutely nothing.
Do you think, Mehdi, on what is the biggest political transformation of modern times, do you think a British Prime Minister can deliver it and take the abuse and the difficulty that they'll face for doing it from multinational businesses and goodness knows who else? Do you actually think a British Prime Minister can deliver this without believing in it?
Why can't she not do that? Because she is the Prime Minister, right? She has voted for Remain, but she is trying her hardest to deliver on Brexit.
Okay, so you think, Mehdi, you think she can deliver it whether she believes in it or not, yeah?
She's saying people's will of the people will be honoured. That's what she's saying.
Okay.
That's what she's working on. So stop bullying her.
Okay. Mehdi, you think it's good enough? That's fine. I thank you. In a minute, I'm going to tell you exactly what I think. Exactly what I think about the Prime Minister's lack of response. But for now, you're listening to the Nigel Farage Show exclusively on LBC, and it's 7:15. The Prime Minister does her first ever phone-in with LBC today, and yet, when she's asked by Ian Dale, LBC presenter, whether, if there was a referendum now, she would vote leave, and she's changed her mind. She simply can't answer the question, but says that her job as Prime Minister is to deliver Brexit. I have tried this year again and again to give the Prime Minister support. She started off in the Lancaster House speech in January saying Brexit means Brexit. And she carried on several times this year saying support us, vote for us in the general election. We're the people that will make sure that Brexit happened. And whenever she was on the platform, she gave us the impression, she really did give us the impression that she believed in it. Here she is speaking a week before the general election.
You can't negotiate the right Brexit deal for Britain if you don't believe in Britain. You can't fight for Britain if you don't have confidence in our strengths and in all that we have to offer. You can only deliver Brexit if you believe in Brexit.
So there we are. The Prime Minister wants your vote. Don't worry your little heads about UKIP or anybody else. I am the Brexiteer. I am the person that believes in this. I am the person you must vote for because I'm going to deliver it. Well, it was a big sell. It was in many ways quite impressive. It looked and sounded sincere. And yet, the truth is, it wasn't. Because when Ian Dale asks her, how would you vote? Would you vote Remain or leave? She simply can't answer the question. And all of us are left with the impression that in reality, she still believes that Remain was the right decision last year. And I do not believe that you can lead this country into this big political transformation, given all of the criticism you're going to face internally and externally, unless you absolutely believe in it with all your heart and all your soul. And I think this answer today explains to me why we've had delay, explains the lack of leadership. She's viewing it as just another political issue and doing her best to placate both wings of her party. Actually, she's not really pleasing anybody. Brexit, 16 months on from the vote, is frankly completely and utterly stalled. And I'm sorry, but this is not the person to lead this country into big historic change. Sometimes in life, it's not what you say that reveals who you are, it's what you don't say. And she could not say she'd made that transformation, that she would vote leave now, that she believed in Brexit. She simply couldn't bring herself to do it. And if the Tory party don't get rid of her, or she doesn't decide to stand down herself, not only will Mr Corbyn be the next Prime Minister, but we will finish up getting Brexit in name only and little else. So I'm angry about today, and yet I think it was very helpful. I wonder what Jeff, who's calling from Edmonton, made of the Prime Minister's performance. Jeff, good evening.
Good evening, gentlemen. Yeah, I don't really believe she realises that what she's really done tonight. Well done, Ian, for the scoop. She has basically... But anything in life you want to do, you want to achieve, whether it's passing an exam, starting a business, let's just use a boxing analogy. If you're a boxer and you're going into a fight and you don't believe you can win, well, guess what's going to happen? You are going to lose.
Yep.
It's a fact. You have to believe wholeheartedly in everything you do, especially something of this gravity. You're telling me that our head runner, our front person who's taken us out of Brexit, doesn't believe in the whole... She doesn't believe at all. She has put the final nail in her coffin tonight. I'm sorry, but...
I agree,
she
Jeff.
doesn't realise what she's done.
Jeff, I agree with you. I think, the sort of plot against her at the weekend, led by Grant Shapps, that was chiefly Remainers who were hoping to get her out. But I think her real problem comes when the Eurosceptics in the party start to turn against her. And Jeff, as I say, this comes on the back of yesterday when she confirmed to Jacob Rees-Mogg that the European Court of Justice would, up until effectively the next general election, have a say on this country and would accept new laws. Jeff from Edmonton, I think you're right. I think this is a big moment this evening. It certainly wasn't what she intended when she walked through the doors of LBC at 5 o'clock earlier on this evening. I've got very interesting comments coming in on Twitter, on Facebook. One says here on Twitter, if she'd said she would vote to remain still, I'd respect her for being honest. Yeah, but she couldn't even do that, could she? She couldn't even do that. She refused to answer the question, but left us in absolutely no doubt that actually she's a Remainer. Even if she was still a Remainer, the fact is she's doing what we said to do. That speaks well of her, says Chris. Chris, just saying I will carry out the will of the people isn't good enough in what is going to be a really big set of decisions that have to get made over the course of the next couple of years. It's not enough. Will from Evesham, what is your opinion? Good evening.
Good evening, Nigel. I mean, you talk about Brexit like it's some kind of a religious fervour, like this is a matter of faith. You're either a believer or you're not a believer.
Well, I think in terms of the Prime Minister, having to do the job, I don't see how you can do it unless you believe in it.
But surely, as a Prime Minister, you would hope she's reflective. You would hope she would actually look at the evidence in front of her and say this is going to be a disaster. And she, if she's got any integrity, my problem with a lot of these characters, if they've got any integrity now, they should reflect and say this is not going to work. I remember you going about Project Fear 12 months ago. Well, if you look at the data, it's probably worse than they were predicting. Yeah.
Oh, so exports, so exports being up, foreign and direct investment being up. What's your problem, Will?
Well, my problem is you're painting this as some kind of dogmatic thing. Surely you want a pragmatic Prime Minister who looks at the evidence, realises this is going to be a disaster for our country, and goes to the public and says, look, we have to stop this.
Well, I see. So what we do then, Will, is we say, do you know what? The hell with you 17.4 million people. You don't care. You're thick. You're stupid. You really don't wash often enough. And we, the great and the good, know what is good for you, so we're going to reverse Brexit. That's what she should do, is it?
Stupid.
Is that what she should do?
hang on, I didn't call any thick or stupid.
A lot of people who want a second referendum have talked down to and treated Brexiteers as if they're frankly a little bit thick and don't know what's good for them.
I think you're just simplifying and trying to patronise the argument there. I'm sorry. I think what I'm suggesting is people should reflect on the fact, and no one's called anybody thick. People voted.
Oh, they have done. Don't worry.
I'm sure they have, and equally, you've been quite abusive about people who voted to remain, and it doesn't really help.
I've never been abusive about anyone that voted to remain, provided they have it as a sincerely held opinion. I believe in open, proper, democratic debate. What I am.
In which case, why are you so afraid of another referendum?
Well, why not have one every Thursday and keep it going forever? I mean, it wasn't the best of three, Will. You lost. Tough, mate. That's where it is. The fact is, look, Will, she was elected. She was elected on a ticket that said, I played you that clip a few minutes ago. That 16-second clip where she says, vote for me because I believe in Brexit, and now she admits she doesn't. Is that really good, open, honest democracy at work?
Absolutely. I would want a reflective Prime Minister who looks at the facts, sees the evidence and does the best for the country.
So gets elected and then 4 months later says, well, actually, what I told you, I didn't really believe in it at all. But thanks ever so much for putting me into number 10.
I actually remember you on the day that, on the very day that the result was announced on TV saying, yes, you agreed there wouldn't be a 350 million more for the NHS. That wasn't true. Didn't you say that on the very day?
I condemn the 350 million figure right from the very start. Will, thank you. I've got time for one more before the news. Paul is calling from Bromley. Paul, can the Prime Minister, is it possible for a Prime Minister to lead us through a Brexit process if she clearly doesn't believe in it?
100%. For start off, Ian Dale's tried to get his Jeremy Paxman moment and get a politician to have to answer 3 times in the trot, or whatever he's trying to do. Bully for Ian Dale. But the point is, 16 million people voted no. You've had your say,
I don't think so,
16 million
Paul.
people. No, hold on a second. You've got the rest of the show to talk. 16 million people voted Remain. She's got to bring the whole country together. If she'd have said, I'm going to vote Leave next referendum, then we'd have started this whole hard and soft Brexit that she'd have been castigated by all sorts of people, the business community. She did the right thing. At the end of the sentence, she said she's delivering Brexit and we're out in March 2019. What don't you understand about that?
She, by the way, Paul, Ian Dale, far from attempting a Jeremy Paxman moment, and let me just give you an example. When Paxman asked her this question, he began by saying, when did you realise you'd got it wrong on the biggest question of our time? Do you still think it was a duff idea? I mean, Paxman really went for her. Dale, if you look at the words that Ian used, actually asked her straight, gentle questions which she simply refused to answer. So the idea that somehow Dale used this interview to produce sensational headlines, if you look at the style in which he did it, I would say the answer is far from it. And you may have heard him, Paul, because he stayed afterwards for a few minutes at the top of this show. He said he fully expected her to say, yes, of course, I would now vote Leave.
I think she did exactly the right thing and answer it the way she did, because if she'd have said one thing or the other, then she'd have got castigated by the whole, relive the referendum again. We've had the referendum. It's irrelevant to talk about another one because we're not having one. And at the end of the day, right at the end of the sentence, we're leaving in March 19.
But we're not, are we?
2019. Yes, we are. And get it into your head.
There's a transition period, Paul, isn't there?
No. Yeah. So what? We're still leaving.
Well, hang on. The European Court of Justice is going to have say after March 2019.
We're still leaving.
We're going to go on paying. We're going to go on paying £8 to £10 billion a year. We're going to go on with open borders. I mean, it looks, Paul.
Nigel,
does it not?
Go back to your tribal, political. You can't get out of the rut.
Do you think if the European Court of Justice has say and it's the Supreme Court of this country, would you define that as a position where we're outside the European Union?
It's a transition. What don't you understand about that?
How long will it last, Paul?
You're going from one point to the other.
How long will it last?
Another point is we're leaving the EU.
Well, if we all believed that, we wouldn't be having this debate, and the Prime Minister could easily have impressed us. Paul, I thank you. We've got to move on. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 7:30, and Brexiteers everywhere are going to be furious that Theresa May could not answer Ian Dale's question about whether she would now support the Leave side in a referendum. Meanwhile, the Catalan President, Carles Puigdemont, has spoken in the Parliament in Barcelona. He said he has a mandate to declare independence for the northeastern region, but he's prepared to wait a few weeks in order to facilitate a dialogue. He told the Parliament a landslide victory in the disputed 1st of October referendum gives his government grounds to implement its long-held desire to break the century-old ties with Spain. But he's suggesting holding off. He was highly critical of the Spanish government and their response and the behaviour of their police. He said Catalans had nothing against Spain or Spaniards, but it was time to understand each other and to talk. So we are not going to see dramatic scenes tonight of Spanish troops and police seizing buildings in the capital of Barcelona. But don't think this issue has gone away. And what was so fascinating, I thought, when Theo Usherwood was there over the course of the last couple of days, was to speak to these Catalan separatists who now feel as strongly against the European Union as I have done for many, many years. So watch this space. That one's coming back. Meanwhile, it's the Prime Minister. My last two callers think it's perfectly acceptable for the Prime Minister to carry out the will of the people without actually believing in the Brexit cause. I think it's impossible to take on something of this magnitude. You know, you can't climb Everest unless you absolutely believe and want to do it. That's my view. James is calling from Manchester. James, good evening. What did you make of Mrs May's lack of response?
Good evening, Nigel. I was not impressed at all. I think it's part of a long-running trend of betraying hardcore Conservative Party members in two senses. On the one hand, you have social Conservatives that have felt betrayed for a very long time, and this is not strictly Theresa May's fault, but on things like gay marriage, on things like Justin Greening's ridiculous decision for changes to gender on birth certificates, they have felt alienated probably for the past decade. And now, thanks to a combination of her economic agenda and this disastrous display on LBC, she's managed to alienate Thatcherites as well. And I think you're going to see Conservative Party membership, as it has done for the past 20 or so years, continue to dwindle and dwindle and dwindle. And in the face of
there was talk in Manchester, James, when I was in your home city a few weeks ago, there was talk that the official Conservative Party membership may well now have fallen below 100,000, so there's certainly a trend in that direction. But let me just come back to something you said. You believe her performance on LBC was, you used the word disastrous, yeah?
Absolutely, yes.
And you say that because you think it'll have ripple effects and there'll perhaps start to be Eurosceptics in the House of Commons speaking out against her? Or
Indeed. Yeah, I think the recent coup that was attempted against her was mainly Remain-led, which is why I think a lot of Brexiteers distance themselves from it.
Yes.
I can't see themselves distancing themselves from a future leadership challenge.
James, fascinating, thank you. I said that earlier when Theo was here. I said, watch this space. I think you're going to start to see some Eurosceptic Conservatives speaking out. James from Manchester believes much the same. David from Hereford texts in. He says, Nigel, Mr Trump builds fences, Mrs May just sits on them. Very good. Fred is calling from Frankfurt. Fred, good evening.
Good evening to you, Nigel. And firstly, let me thank you for all the work that you've done for Brexiteers. It's amazing. And
well, Fred, thank you. So I take it you're a fellow Brexiteer, then?
Yeah, I'm worse than you are.
Right, okay. So given that you've got Euroscepticism as bad as you have, what is your response to the Prime Minister's lack of an answer to Ian Dale?
Why she's Remainer. It's very, very obvious, and the cabinet, they're all Remainers. But I have a bigger fear, Nigel, and I put this to you. I think that we're being led up the garden path. Because it's going to be at least 2, 3, 4 years now before there's any chance of being cleanly out of the EU. And if this government decide, if they are intent to reverse Brexit in any way, and they engineer an economic recession in the meantime, and they use that as an excuse to go to Parliament and revoke Article 50 or backtrack on Brexit, you know, I think there could be a plot behind the scenes, because You know, there is absolutely
no
need to drag out these discussions. There could even be an arrangement between them and Brussels, because nobody's interested in going anywhere.
Fred, nothing is impossible, but all I can say to you is if they were to try to withdraw Article 50, I think you would have the biggest political revolt we've seen ever in this country. Fred from Frankfurt, I thank you. Chaz is calling from Verwood in Dorset. Chaz, did she do the right thing in not answering?
Yeah, I think she did, Nigel.
Do you?
Yeah, of course she did. I think it's being a little bit unfair. The poor lady's caught between a rock and a hard place. She's, if she says I would vote Remain, then everybody would be massively up in arms, saying, "Oh my goodness, we've got a Remainer at the helm. We can't have Brexit with a Remainer at the helm."
Right.
And if she said I'd leave, then the Remainers would be, "Well, she's not on our side either. This is a binary situation."
Oh, hang on, Chaz. Chaz, hang on. Why would Remainers in the Conservative Party not accept a democratic result and expect a Prime Minister who was elected on a manifesto to deliver Brexit to get on and do it?
Well, that's exactly what she's doing, but you keep on harping on about... Yes, she is. That's what she's trying to do.
Wasn't what I heard yesterday, Chaz.
Well, okay, just a second.
You know,
she can't do it. She can't do it if there's people carping on all the time. What we need is a bipartisan solution, and that's what she's trying to achieve. And she can't achieve a bipartisan solution by revealing her own personal hand.
Well, Chaz, I couldn't disagree more strongly. I mean, Jeremy Hunt.
Well, yeah.
Jeremy Hunt. Well, Jeremy Hunt, who was a Remainer, was asked this question last week, and Hunt said he would now vote for Brexit for two reasons. Firstly, because George Osborne's economic predictions.
You've already said this.
Right. So would it not have been? Would it not have been acceptable for the Prime Minister to say, "Do you know what? I believe in what I'm doing. I believe in the direction I'm leading this country." Wouldn't that have inspired confidence?
Well, that's what she's trying to do, isn't it? That's why she's not coming out on one side or the other. But what Jeremy Hunt says, frankly, really doesn't sort of garner any sort of hope in me whatsoever. I don't trust the guy to run what he's trying to run at the moment.
Would you like to reverse Brexit, Chaz?
Would I like to reverse Brexit? I'm a Remainer.
Yes.
Obviously.
Still.
I kind of sit on the left of James O'Brien. Yeah, I'm still a Remainer, but I'm also a Democrat. I'm a Remainer who wants this situation to work.
All right.
I want it to work. We are where we are.
So do you believe in open, honest democracy, Chaz?
Yeah, of course I do.
Right. So when a Prime Minister gets elected by saying, "You have to believe in Brexit to deliver Brexit, vote for me," and then a few months later can't answer Ian Dale's simple question, hasn't something gone wrong with politics and trust?
No, I tell you, politics and trust is already a little bit wrong at the moment. She is, as I say, caught between a rock and a hard place and just trying to do a job. I'm not a Conservative. I don't love Theresa May's politics. I don't mind her as a woman. I'm sure she's lovely. But I'm not. But I'm as I say, I'm a libtard, if you like. But what I am as well is a Democrat, and I want this to work. And it can't work with the more people shout. You've done your shouting. You've got your result. Shut up for a bit.
If she was delivering it, Chaz, I'm one of those people, Chaz, that actually has been praising her ever since the Lancaster House speech, giving her a chance. I've now completely had my fill of her. I feel that she willfully led the country into believing that if you voted for her, a clean, clear Brexit would be delivered, and now we see that her real vision is to wrap it up in a transitional arrangement up to the next general election. Chaz, I'm not happy. Fine, I get your point. You are a Remainer, and it's and I guess it's no surprise. Generally, Remainers are being nicer about her comments than Brexiteers are. Peter is calling from Wimbledon. Peter, good evening.
Hi, good evening, Nigel. What I'd like to say, Nigel, while all the liars and hypocrites leavers kind of run away, Theresa May stepped up to the plate, and she took upon herself a very, very difficult task. And people like you and others managed to con British public that Brexit is going to
Hang on, Peter. Peter, sorry, who's run away?
People like myself.
Hang on. Sorry. I'm a leader of a group in the European Parliament. I've been launching a series of Brexit speeches all over Europe. I was doing battle on Catalonia last week. And you say I've run away?
You and your party got one of the worst records in attendance where the British matters were discussed in European Parliament. So I'm not sure.
Well, actually, some of our MEPs have amongst the highest attendances. So who else has run away, Peter? Because this is your comment. The Brexiteers have all run away. Who else has run away?
what's happened to Boris Johnson?
He's the foreign secretary.
Well, he ran away from.
He's the foreign secretary.
Well, he's not a prime minister of this country, is he?
Well, he'd love to be. I tell you what, he'd love to be. And after tonight, Peter, he may well be. You know, I mean, look, no one doubt. Look, I don't doubt your basic point. She's got a very difficult job to do. I agree with that, Peter. But do you? Let me ask you very quickly. Do you honestly think that she can deliver something of the magnitude of Brexit without actually believing in it?
I agree with you, and the reason is she knows that Brexit cannot be a success, and that's why she will never admit she will change her mind. And unfortunately, Nigel, people like yourself and others are going to wake up to reality. This is probably not touching you, but ordinary people, British people, are already suffering since Brexit.
Peter, I just want to wake up. I just want to wake up in an independent, self-governing, democratic, United Kingdom. That's what I and 17.4 million people voted for on June the 23rd last year, and we're getting a bit frustrated. I thank you for your call and your charming, kind comments about me. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 7:45. The Prime Minister falls flat on her face, in my opinion, under questioning from Ian Dale about whether she now is truly a believer in Brexit, and I'm getting your opinions in response to that, and there are some, mostly it has to be said, leavers, who think she may now be in very real trouble indeed. Many of you, others who are Remainers that have been ringing me up, think it's quite acceptable for a Prime Minister either to completely do a U-turn on her manifesto commitments of 4 months ago when she said, I believe in Brexit, vote for me. And some of you even think that a Prime Minister can lead this country into Brexit without believing in it. I do not believe that is possible. Matt in Gloucester, you're on LBC. What's your view?
Hi. Well, I'd like to ask you a similar question, actually, Nigel.
Yeah.
If there was a referendum tomorrow with leave no deal or leave with a deal on the ballot, which would you choose?
Well, that depends, doesn't it? I mean, that depends what sort of deal you're talking about. I mean, look, the referendum, Matt. The referendum, Matt, was no. The referendum was to leave. It wasn't to leave with or without a deal, and it wasn't to stay, you know, with or without a whole new load of regulations coming in next year or the year afterwards. The quote was to leave.
Fully behind no deal.
I'm fully behind it. Absolutely. In fact, Gordon on Facebook.
So you'd vote leave no deal then?
Gordon on Facebook has just said no deal is the real deal. He's probably right. In a grown-up world, Matt, if we were dealing with sensible people in Brussels, we're not. We're dealing with fanatics. If we were dealing with sensible people, then a simple free trade arrangement, an FTA, between us and the European Union would be the best and the cleanest and the easiest way to do things. If, however, they're not prepared to be grown up about it, which it doesn't look like they are, then leaving rapidly with no deal and being able to get on with our relationship with the rest of the world is infinitely better than where we are now.
Theresa May has asked a question now, and I'm asking you a very simple question. If you had the chance to vote now,
I would vote leave.
Leave no deal, or leave with a deal?
Well, leave with a deal, obviously, would be the sensible grown-up thing to do. But you can't guarantee that in the future. What you do in a referendum...
So you can't answer the question now, then, can you? Because
leave under any circumstances, Matt. Leave. I'd vote in blood to leave. Is that good enough for you?
No, because you just said you'd leave with a deal. For all you know, the deal will be...
Right, I'll leave without a deal then. I tell you what, I'd vote leave in 100 referendums in 100 different ways. This was not...
Nigel,
this is not multiple choice. It's not multiple choice. This is, we want to leave. And she wasn't asked a trick question. She was asked whether she now would vote to leave. Effectively, did she now believe in Brexit?
She doesn't know because we're not at the end of the negotiations yet, just as you have admitted that you're not sure either.
No. I'm absolutely sure we must leave whatever the circumstances.
No, you just said that we should leave with a deal.
No, I'm certain we should leave. We should leave. End of. Full stop. How we leave, frankly, is far less important than getting back control of our country.
So we need another referendum to leave No Deal, because we haven't had one on it yet.
And should we then have another referendum on the next set of deals that come after that? No. What we did in the referendum was to make a decision on what direction the country was going in. And we've decided to turn round by 180 degrees and move into a direction of normality, what most countries in the world do, which is to make their own decisions through their own people. Why not?
Well, we need clarity. So I think you should support another referendum to leave No Deal, because we haven't had one yet. We're not in a leave No Deal at the moment.
It wasn't the best of three. It wasn't the best of three. We voted to leave. You obviously don't like that, but I tell you what, it's now 70% in this country that not only want us to leave, they want us to get on with it. And I was amazed this morning. I appeared on a platform this morning with Sir Christopher Mayer, the former British ambassador to the United States of America. Foreign Office to his fingertips. Strong Remainer in the campaign. And I was flabbergasted when he said this morning that he now believed it was right that we should leave, that we'd made the decision, let's just get on with it. And he was fiercely he was more critical of Juncker, Barnier and Verhofstadt than I've ever been. So actually, you get people like Matt in Gloucester who just can't bear the thought that we're not going to live in the United States of Europe, but actually, generally, across this country, it is the view people are coming to. Sharon is calling me from Mill Hill. Sharon, do you feel sorry for Mrs. May over tonight, or was she exposed by Dale?
I don't feel sorry for her, no, but I do think, Mike, I happen to have found the previous caller brilliant, actually, because I think that what he did was he put you in a situation which I've never seen you in, where you actually were quite uncomfortable with the question. He kept pushing you and pushing you and pushing you.
It's a trick question, isn't it? It's a trick question.
Is it?
Yeah, of course it is. Sharon,
is it a trick question,
I want to leave.
Yes, we know that, but as you are well aware, of course we understand that's what you want and wanted and will want in the future. However, it's it's turned out to be far more complicated than any of us thought.
No, it's not. It's dead simple. Whether we have a free trade agreement or not, frankly, is irrelevant compared to the bigger question of whether we are in charge of our future trade policy or not, whether we are in charge of our country or not.
No, absolutely. I agree, but this is unprecedented. First of all, I just want to go back to the question about Theresa May. It appears to me that the media, once again, which is what people do in this country for some reason, is go after politicians of all parties and try and trip them up. Now, I don't understand why he had to ask the question to begin with.
Do you know something?
Why she is the Prime Minister right now. Okay, so whether there's a vote of no confidence and somebody else takes her place, that's a different story. But while she's the Prime Minister, why don't we just get behind her instead of trying with this afternoon you were saying, wait and see what the headlines are going to be tomorrow. It's going to be slating Mrs. May. Actually, she did answer the question. She was very diplomatic and she was actually very clever. And I'm not the most massive fan, and I don't think that she's necessarily the best person for the job. What she said was, last time I took into account everything that I considered everything, and I wanted to remain. And next time, that's what I would do. And what's wrong with saying that?
I think Sharon, the problem.
There's not going to be another referendum.
I think the problem
There's
is
not going to be another one.
No, but what Ian was asking was, did she, as a Remainer, now believe in the Leave cause? That in effect.
He didn't say that, did he?
Well, that was the implication of the question, wasn't it? Yeah.
But the implication. Let's be honest. If you were a fan of hers, then it wouldn't be about the implication. The question was very plain and simple. If there was another referendum, would you vote Remain or would you vote for Brexit?
Right, so how is it then, Sharon?
To catch her out.
How is it, Sharon? How is it, Sharon, that she was able, in the general election, on that clip we played you, which was a speech she gave on the 1st of June, how is it she was able in the election to make it very clear to us that she believed in it and that now she backs off from it? Is that just what politicians do?
Backing off. Yeah, well, you're the right one to answer that one because you would know. Come on. Listen, politicians often... She hasn't made a U-turn. She just simply answered the question honestly and said, simply, I would consider... And let's be honest, I think a lot of people who did vote Remain would possibly vote leave now, because we have a lot more knowledge. And vice versa. Okay, there are a lot of people voted who were. A lot of the public didn't know all the ins.
Do you think, Sharon, do you think she's the right Prime Minister to take us through the Brexit process?
Not necessarily, no.
Okay. All right, Sharon, I've got to let you go. I thank you. Big range of opinions. I've no doubt that interview with Ian Dale is going to be a big story over the course of the next coming days. I thought her inability to answer that question was wholly unsatisfactory. I think support will continue to melt away from her with very good reason. You've been listening to The Nigel Farage Show. I'm back tomorrow evening from 7, and you can continue to give your